Good morning, friends, from Hodeg Haji's homestead here in the Great White North. Not like what Bob and Doug McKenzie said from Canada, if you remember that song from many years ago back in the 80s. That's just showing my age. But anyway, warm fuzzies to everybody here as we go about our Sunday. And I have a apology to say to everybody. Slice of humble pie, if you will. I had told everybody I was going to go out and get some fishing video and hoping I was going to do that. Well, my buddy and I went out after a cold front had moved through in one of our lakes that we know up here, and we got skunked. A big fat zero. Yes, we did. And instead of showing you the video, I thought I would come before you and ask for forgiveness and say, sometimes you just got to swallow your ego and your pride and say, I got whooped on that one. And that's what happened. So, anyway, hoping to have some future videos for you. And that's not the topic of today that we'll talk about, but hopefully you can get excited about this one. Um, I many years ago, if you would have asked me, say 35 years ago, or actually would have told me and said, hey, in 35 years, when you're 55 to 60 years old, you're going to become an Amish driver and you're going to have a homestead with a little cabin in the woods. I would have said, there's not a snowball's chance in a blast furnace that that's ever happening. But here I am, living my dream. Anyway, let's go back to the 90s, early 90s, where I thought I was living my dream. And at the time, I probably was. I was fresh out of college and I had got, well, my first job that I got out of college was up in Marquette, Michigan. I was a TV news reporter up there and worked and covered all the Upper Peninsula news there in '89. Worked there for a year and then transferred over and went to a job in Green Bay and worked started out as a news photographer and then jumped into sports reporting at a TV station there. And it was great. I was living the dream. I thought everything was excellent. I was covering the Green Bay Packers, and it was my, favorite team from ever since I was a little kid. I was working with, who I thought was some local celebrities, and I got to meet Brett Favre, Reggie White, Sterling Sharp, all these guys, and um, it was kind of crazy because if we go back to that time frame in sports reporting and in TV. It's crazy as to what things have done and how they've progressed as to today. I watch people today and they're on their little cameras doing live stuff, or whatever, and doing their reporting right from their phone. What we would do, I'd go to a football game that I'd cover down in Tampa Stadium, if the Packers were playing the Buccaneers, and after the game was over, we'd go to the locker room area, and they'd have payphones. Yes, payphones. I'd get out a payphone and I would take my tape and I would look at it on my recorder and I would go back on the phone and from there, from Tampa Bay, and talk to my sports reporter in the office there, Larry McCarron. Good buddy, man. He was awesome. Larry was great. You might know him. He's a former center for the Packers and worked as a sportscaster for years. He's actually the color guy for Packers right now with Wayne Larrivee and does a great job. But anyway, got a little plug in for Larry. So if you ever see this, Larry, anyway, I'd go and I'd get on the phone and I would look at my tape recorder and I would say, okay, here's what's going on. At 8 minutes and 3 seconds on the tape, Favre to Sharp for the first score, 6-zip, and the Packers went up, that kind of thing. And he would take all this information, write it down. And then what we would do is we would give those tapes to all of the Packer personnel, like the all the people that worked for the Packers and that. They would take them and fly them back on their Packer plane and go back to Green Bay at Austin Straubel Airport. One of the sports guys at our place would drive out to the airport to get the tape and then take the tape and drive it back to the TV station so that Larry could in turn then use it to his sportscast. And that's just a little brief history of kind of how times have progressed into the social media and the world that we live in now. It was a much different world we lived in back in the day. We had some kind of capabilities to do a little bit of live and stuff, but it was like these big, huge feed towers we'd have off of our vans that would stick up high in the air, and you felt like the van was going to tip over, if you got a wind gust. Now things are obviously with things being able to at the snap of a second be able to do everything. It's much advanced. But anyway, I just wanted to share that little story with you, and hopefully you got some interest in that. But um, so advancing then, as I moved along, I realized that to make any kind of money in this and to progress, um, boy, it was going to take a lot of effort, a lot of time, or whatever. And it was a much different scenario then than what it is now, obviously. But to make a long story short, I moved on from that and then got out of TV because just the money wasn't there for me. And I had a couple opportunities to go to small markets, but gonna make, start out real low and that kind of thing on the pay scale and everything else. And it was, it just felt like this rat, spinning around on the cycle, of life. And I moved on into um, getting my own DJ business. So I worked in my own DJ industry, doing mobile weddings for DJs and that kind of thing, or I mean, mobile DJ for weddings for many, many years. And then recently retired from that a couple of years ago. But anyway, the advancement from that to where I'm at now, I guess, it's kind of crazy in a way, but we all change. My priorities change where as I got older, I didn't really care to want to be into the spotlight all the time. I loved, I shared a little bit about after I went through my divorce and everything. And, life is pretty chaotic, as we all know, anybody that's been through a divorce. But once that happened, it was, 55 years old. And I thought, it's got to be something better than running all over the place and feeling like you're running a rat race constantly. So, what I did at that time, is said, I was working and making really good money. I was working for Waste Management at the time and um, doing really well, but just wasn't. I knew that was only a temporary job, and I wanted to move into something where I could have really love my job and get into it, work up, the point where on a Monday morning I'm not dreading going into work. So I had a friend of mine then that got me, him and his wife, into buying a van. Started out doing some part-time Amish driving and then got into doing it full time. And once I got on the road and tasted that freedom, and it was tough at first. It was very difficult because going through the divorce I did, and I shared that my mom had passed away. It was a difficult time at first, but I thought the easiest way for me to get through all of this is to go and find my peace in the woods, on the road, doing something that you love, and then eventually working my way through it. So fast forward to now, I'm completely content with the solitude, the silence, and the peace. As much as I love being around people that are add to that peace, I am content in being alone and having that kind of an atmosphere around me. Um, so that's kind of it right there. I just wanted to share you that sometimes it's kind of a shock to people's system when you sit there and you think, holy man, this person was this. And then they went from being in the spotlight to wanting to just have a nice little peace and solitude in the woods. And that's kind of where I'm at now. In fact, a lot of people, if you want, since we're talking about sports casting, most people know Jim Rome. He's actually got a place up here not too far from me. I don't know exactly where it is, but he's talked about it many times. It's up in the Eagle River area. And so there's a guy that decided I want to get a cabin and I want to escape to my peace and my solitude. My only hope is that he's able to do that and to get away, because that lifestyle, especially when you make it that big like he is, it's crazy. You make a lot of money and you do all of that. And please don't take this the wrong way, because I'm not attacking money. I'm not attacking people that made a lot of money. It's just it's very difficult to balance that money with being able to enjoy the money that you ended up earning. And in the Bible, it tells us that Money is not the root of all evil. A lot of people get that wrong. It's not money itself, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And that's the thing that gets everybody in trouble a lot of times, is that we want to accumulate, and we want to get a lot of things. Again, not in and of itself, getting good things in life are not bad. I've had to work real hard to get to the point where I'm at right here with the cabin that I have behind me. But most people would never live, in 384 square feet, you know, and that's perfect for me, and that's okay with me. It doesn't bother me if people say, you live in a closet, whatever. I don't care, because it's what brings happiness to me. So that I hope was a little bit entertaining for you, and was to give you a little bit of a bright spot in your day today, and to know that no matter where you came from, whether it's the hustle and bustle or whatever job it was, or wherever you've been, the key is to try to go to work. And if you're going to work, enjoy it. Find time for solitude, find time for peace, find time to nourish all of those things that you have to do to try and keep ourselves and our body emotionally, spiritually, and physically healthy. Because in the end, when you talk, again, to people that are nearing the end, getting close, and they're on their deathbed, you never hear somebody say, "Man, you know what? The one thing that I regret is that I didn't spend enough time at work." You're never going to hear somebody say that. But you will hear a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people that have said, "I really didn't make enough memories. I didn't spend enough time with friends. I didn't spend enough time finding my own peace." So there's my encouragement to you today, my friends. Warm fuzzies from up north right here, and I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Go out and enjoy it, and nourish that body. And remember, less is more. Hodeg Haji, signing out.